Code demonstration for inheritance in Java. Main program named inheritance right here is running the main function. Welcome to Mars base. Implement a scanner, an array list to hold all the people that might be added. Give a menu, choose an action, add a new person, simulate a day. You know what? I'm going to get rid of that part too. I don't need them to know what it means. Display current personnel and exit. Take their choice, store it in the choice variable, run a switch case on it. Call the add person function, simulate day function, or display people function, depending on what they choose, or just exit. And then the add person method, this one got a little wonky on me for a bit. I had to fight this one. I did it very wrong at first. So what this one does is it gets the first name, gets the last name, gets the rank out of one of 5 options, and so I use the user input as one of those 5 numbers. So I put that within a while loop just to check and make sure it's an integer and it's within the right range, depending on whatever value they put in there. If they choose, let's say they choose number 1 as commander, and then if they choose that, which is their title choice, then I call the commander constructor, but I instantiate a new person to a null value right here. So this is just an empty variable, but this is just so the parent class has an instance in order to be able to work with this new person right here, because it's not decided which constructor I'm going to call yet. So it just calls in the person constructor and assigns 0 value to them. And then based on the choice, commander, scientist, engineer, technician, or general staff constructor will be called in relation to that. It also gives a confirmation, adds it to the Mars base list, is the one holding all the people, adds it to that, and then does a little, this person added to the Mars base. Display people, this just iterates through the list of persons, so an array list. The Mars base goes through each of them. If there's nobody there, it just returns, lists them out, title, colon, first name, last name, dash, location. And the location is private. We'll go over the class here in a second, but I use the get location getter here. Title, first name, and last name are public, so you don't have to do that. And since they're not really like, in this situation, you could encapsulate it, but there's no point. It's not like that data is really, it's a small program. The simulate day function, this is like the biggest function of the program probably, other than the add person. But for the simulate day, you just check, make sure there's somebody there. If there's not, you just say nobody's at the base. I gave a string of locations at the base: common area, habitat, Mars rover, outpost, research station, and laboratory. I've also got a random instantiation here for a random object, so I can pull random numbers. I use it right here, so I iterate through each person in the Mars base list. So for each of those, we get the assigned location is selected from the locations array right here, the list, randomly as the next integer from 0 to the length of the locations array. So it's 0 to 5, 6 possibilities. And then I set the location, I use the setter right here to set the location attribute of the person to the assigned location that was just given. And then I do a print line, just says this person is now in the blank, good to go. And then I execute specific actions only based on where they are. So each person right here, first name, last name, title, location, basic constructor, defaults the location to Mars base. The get location just returns the location because it's a private attribute, has to be accessed by a publicly available method from within the class. So you use this public part right here to get a hold of this private part right here. Private part. Set location works the same way if you want to adjust the location. It's a publicly accessible method that accesses a private attribute. But everybody has talk, eat, sleep, and then here's a generic work. I put this in here just because in case there's a person instantiated that it won't work with, but of all these other classes, the Constructor looks the exact same as far as the so if you look at this constructor, this one gets first name, last name, title, location. And so in the commander one, it's the exact same, but you don't put title and location. I just default those because I know if you call this constructor, that you're making a commander rank person. So I don't need to establish that beforehand. As long as this is the constructor being called, that value always goes to commander. And the location always defaults to Mars base once again, which I could probably leave out of there, but I figured it's a little easier and I can come back and change it if I want to. The work method in each one of them has a different thing. Commander is bossing people around, scientist is conducting an experiment and taking notes, technician is calibrating equipment, on and on. So that's the main code of it. I'll run it for you here. I'll probably just add 2 or 3 people to the roster here. So we'll do me. Another one will be John. Well, let me just crash my program here. Sorry about that. John Doe. He'll be a scientist, and then we've got to add one more, and it'll be Jane Doe. This will be a technician. Okay, so here we can display the current personnel. You can see the commander, scientist, technician. They're all defaulted to Mars base because we haven't run the simulated day yet. So during a day, they'll go to different locations on the base. Here goes. Alexander is now in the outpost. The outpost, it gives a quick summary. The outpost is a strategic location for monitoring the planet. And then it says, you know, he says, let's make Mars a better place. Eats a vacuum sealed meal in the outpost, sleeps at the outpost, is bossing people around. John is in the habitat. Now in the habitat, so they can talk, eat, and sleep and work at the outpost. All those things can happen at the outpost. The habitat is only for sleeping and talking. So John will only do the sleep method and the talk method. Then the laboratory is the same, but it's restricted even more because all they can do is work and talk. They can't eat in the laboratory. So basically the code restricts the function call based on the location value or attribute of whatever object is being, you know, summarized for their daily activity. So yeah, like, yeah, the default is just person works just in case something gets missed in the code, but here the laboratory only has work and talk. The outpost has all of them since it's, you know, it's an outpost, kind of has everything. And then of course, like the Mars rover only has work and talk. You can't eat there, can't sleep in it. You know, it's not what it's for. So that's the code.